Welcome to the Swine Health Black Belt Podcast, the latest swine health research digested for you. My name is Dr. Clayton Johnson, and I'm the host of the podcast. Joining me this week is Dr. Meredith Petersen. Dr. Petersen is a postdoctoral research associate with the Swine Medicine Education Center, or SMEC as it's more commonly known, through Iowa State University and AMVC. Dr. Petersen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Give everybody a little bit of introduction. What's your background and what do you do there at SMEC?
Yeah, so I'm a postdoc with SMEC. I do some teaching of fourth year veterinary student rotations, as well as a few kind of guest lectures for other courses. I also do research. All my research is focused on telemedicine. So I'm working towards my Ph.D. and that's kind of been my research focus. And then I have some clinical practice kind of component to my job. We help take care of the Iowa State swine farms.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Petersen, from one vet to the other, I'm sure that at least one of us will get a text message at some point during this recording. So we'll be actually doing telemedicine one way or another while we're actually recording the podcast. Double duty, if you could say.
That's right. It happens all the time.
So telemedicine is something that all of us participate in at some level. You know, I joked about the text thing, but the reality is we all communicate virtually. We did before COVID. We've gotten much better since COVID. But, you know, text messages, emails, phone calls, webinars, all these things are kind of forms of telemedicine. All of us use it at some level, but I don't know that anybody feels like they use it completely efficiently. And with a shortage of veterinarians that is always going to be a challenge for our industry, it's really important that we're efficient with our available veterinarian time. So talk to us about where we're at with telemedicine today. Are we using it as efficiently as we should? Or if not, what are the holdups?
Yeah, so I think you bring up a great point. It's done all the time, but it's not really maybe done as effectively or efficiently as it could be. And I think there's kind of four big things that have led to, I guess, the not so full adoption of the technology. And that's the software. So making sure that we have reliable, easy to access software. The hardware that's used on farm, obviously it needs to be durable, and we need to be able to disinfect it if we're taking it to the next site. The big one that everyone brings up is connectivity. So, you know, as well as I do, that not all our farms can hold a video call or have enough connection for that. And then the fourth one is the validation of methods. So there really hasn't been a lot of research on, okay, what can the technology detect and what can't it? And I think from like a regulatory perspective, that's really an important component before it's adopted kind of widespread throughout the industry.
Is your work through your Ph.D. focused on any one of those areas, or are you kind of tackling all four of them at different points in time?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Most of my research work is focused on this validation of the method. But what I learned and what we learned really early on is that we couldn't do that until we made some progress in those other three components, in the software, hardware, and connection components. So I've kind of had to kind of move all of those in sync in order to ultimately work on the validation of the methods component.
Excellent. Well, tell us what you're learning. I mean, are we making progress on the software, the hardware, the connectivity?
Yeah, so I'll kind of walk through, I guess, those three things. So the software, I've tested 9 different publicly available softwares. Most of them were things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, but then also tested a veterinary telehealth platform called VetNow, and used each of those platforms to connect with 3 different wean to finish sites for a live synchronous video call. And all of them were capable of kind of basic checklists or auditing type use cases. So things like checking feeders and waterers, checking ventilation settings. Are the curtains up or down? Are the inlets open appropriately? All of that kind of stuff, they all seem sufficient at. So I think in terms of that, sometimes with software, it's just what you're most comfortable with or what you're used to using tends to be what people like to use. As far as hardware, have done some work, tested 2 different tablets as well as 2 different pairs of smart glasses. And so kind of a similar process. So I think that the glasses really allowed some technical, technical value on farm to be hands-free. So the person on farm can just wear the glasses and then point things out to the veterinarian or the expert that they're connected with. So I think that's really, really good. There are some, the tech is great, but there are some limitations to that hardware, particularly we found in the cameras. So one thing we noticed was that treatment marks, the way that color is transmitted through video, it's the packets, I guess, of data are really decreased in order to get a live video feed through. And so that changes the color a little bit. And we noticed that we couldn't pick up things like treatment marks. And so that was, raised a flag for us of if we were to use telemedicine to write a CVI or something, which at this point is not something we can do, we need to be able to say these pigs are free of contagious disease. And if we can't see a treatment mark, what's to say that we also couldn't see vesicles or some other subtle lesion? And so I think there are some real drawbacks to, or I guess limitations that the tech isn't quite there for. And then the third thing, the connectivity component. So like I mentioned, many farms don't have 5G. A lot of farms don't have 4G. You need about 0.8 to 1.9 megabits per second speed to sustain a synchronous video link. And so you can just type in speed test on your browser and it'll tell you what the speed is. And a lot of sites you can do that. But we've noticed that there's all the metal, all the concrete, the pigs themselves can also decrease that speed. So we worked with a company called Distinct. They're a barn sensor monitoring company, and they actually created a portable cell booster that I can take with me in the barn, and it kind of boosts the speed of the connection that I have. You can also set up like a directional antenna outside the barn and string it in to boost that. So I think all of those, that software, hardware, and connection have all improved over the last couple of years that I've been working, and I think that'll continue to happen. But then we also need the research component to validate, okay, with the tech and the technology that we have today, what can we do with that and what can't we do? And so that's kind of where that validation component has come in.
Meredith, it sounds like you spent a little bit of time in the field. When you've just kind of randomly sampled anecdotal observations, has the megabytes per second been anywhere near that level on farms to get to the video? Is it kind of like you either have like the old dial-up connection, or you have super fast fiber, or do you see like a huge range and some people can do it or some people can't?
Yeah, so there's a big range. It's a great question, and I would say probably a little over half of the sites that I visited, and most of them are commercial wean to finish sites in Iowa. And so probably a little over half do have enough speed to facilitate that. Now that video call may not be perfect. It might not be the beautiful connection that you have, but you can do it. One thing that we noticed too is even with some of these solutions, there's still a lot of variability in connection that's unpredictable. So you can have really good connection in the morning and then really bad connection in the afternoon. And so things like weather, load on the tower, on the cell tower, really play a big role in that as well. So just because you have good connection one day doesn't necessarily mean you do the next or within the day. So I think more research needs to be done to understand that variability and figure out how to improve it.
United Animal Health has been innovating nutrition that feeds the animals that feed the world since 1956. Now a multinational ag biosciences company, we help people impact the health of their animals with less labor, less variation, less drag, less challenge, and less natural resources. Learn more at unitedanh.com. JBI helps swine producers fight against harmful pathogens with the forming power of D7 disinfectant. JBI helps treat or prevent costly outbreaks and assure eco-friendly biosecurity on farm and transport. Safe and effective against PED, 𝗕𝗅𝗽𝗏𝗏, E. coli, Salmonella, and other illness-causing pathogens. D7 is non-toxic, providing a safer environment for your employees, low corrosive to equipment, and breaks down biofilms. Learn more at jbidistributors.com.
Meredith, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast. I think you're doing some really interesting stuff in a very necessary area of the industry, and I can't thank you enough for sharing what you know.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
All right, to our audience, thank you very much for listening to the Swine Health Black Belt podcast. Please visit us at swinehealthblackbelt.com, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on our next episode next week. For Dr. Meredith Petersen, I'm Dr. 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗁. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
Hey everyone, we're always searching for the latest and greatest research to share each week. If you have a swine health-related research trial and would like to come on the show to talk about it with me and share it with our audience, feel free to send an email to healthblackbelt@swineit.com, and we would love to take a look at your research.